another twist in the Nolan Wells death mystery we want to talk about. His friends, who have come under a cloud of suspicion and rumors and are lawyering up, possibly about to take legal action, they have visited the barrier island near where Nolan's body washed ashore. Why? What does this mean for the investigation? What does this mean for the search?
There's a new development in the Nolan Wells case, and it centers on an unexpected trip back to the island where his body washed ashore. Friends of the deceased 18-year-old college football player reportedly returned to Horn Island last week, this time with their attorneys. Here's what we know and what we still don't. Nolan Wells disappeared during a July 4th boating trip and was found dead near Horn Island on July 6th. Since then, 3 of his friends, Warren Hudson, Jack Spatalo, and Morgan Seymour, have found themselves at the center of intense online speculation. According to TMZ, Hudson and Spatalo, accompanied by their attorneys J. Tyler Cox and Edward Andrew Pollock, traveled back to the island late last week.
We have an update on the Nolan Wells case that we want to talk about. Friends of this deceased 18-year-old college football player reportedly visited Horn Island at the end of last week, on Friday. Remember, Nolan's body washed ashore near this barrier island on July 6th after a boating trip over the July 4th weekend with his friends. And this is key. According to TMZ, the young men here, Warren Hudson and Jack Spatalo, took their lawyers, J. Tyler Cox and Edward Andrew Pollock.
Let's be clear about what's confirmed and what isn't. There is no public evidence from authorities linking these young men to Nolan's death.
Counsel, and this is all in light of reported threats they may have been receiving. There has been online speculation that they were somehow involved in what happened to Nolan. To be clear, there is nothing that we have seen publicly released by authorities to verify that in any way.
They have not been charged, they have not been arrested. In fact, the only arrests connected to this case so far involve people accused of making threats, a separate matter entirely.
This autopsy and the toxicology report. But look, the bottom line is we don't even know if a crime has been committed or allegedly committed in connection with Nolan's death or the investigation in any way. There have been no criminal charges. There have been no arrests. There have been 3 arrests in connection with those allegedly making.
So why go back to the island? According to their attorney, Cox, the trip was emotional. He described it as difficult for Hudson and Spatalo since Horn Island was the last place they saw their friend alive.
Back to the island. So according to TMZ, attorney Cox said things got very emotional when these guys went back to Horn Island. Cox reportedly said the trip was tough for Warren and Jax because that's the last place they saw their best friend. A couple of times we had to pause and give them their space. He emphasized that Nolan was like a brother to them, that Nolan loved them, that they haven't even had an opportunity to.
The group reportedly paused several times to give the 2 men space. Cox emphasized that Nolan was like a brother to them and that the intensity of public attention has kept them from properly grieving. Part of the visit, according to reports, involved showing Pollock a specific area of the island known informally as the washing machine, a spot where tidal currents create a swirling, turbulent effect.
To properly grieve. Cox said that they wanted to show attorney Pollock what's referred to as the washing machine. This is reportedly a part of the island where the tides create this kind of whirlpool effect. Pollock reportedly confirmed those were the same conditions as when Nolan disappeared and was later found.
Cox says the conditions during the visit matched what they were the weekend Nolan disappeared, murky water, difficult to swim in. To be clear, there's no confirmation this played any role in his death. We simply don't know yet. And that uncertainty runs deeper than people might realize. There isn't one official autopsy result circulating. There are 2 ongoing efforts. The state's official autopsy has reportedly been completed, but the results haven't been released publicly.
They deny any allegations. And by the way, the attorneys also represent another one of Nolan's purported friends, Morgan Seymour, too. And the investigation by the Jackson County Sheriff's Office is still reportedly underway. And even though sources reportedly say that the official autopsy has been completed, those results haven't been released.
Separately, an independent autopsy commissioned by Nolan's family, through attorney Ben Crump, has listed the cause and manner of death as undetermined, reportedly because portions of the body were withheld for further state testing. Here's where accounts start to diverge.
Is that the last time the friends saw Nolan was when he left their boat to stay on Horn Island, allegedly to talk to a young woman. According to a Department of Marine Resources report, friends who were with Nolan said, quote, when they left, he was in the company of an unknown female and that he...
Reports say that when Nolan's friends were interviewed, they described him choosing to stay behind on the island in the company of a woman they didn't know. But Nolan's family has pushed back hard on that narrative. One of his friends, Javon Williams, told CNN that Nolan never stayed behind when a group left, that if he rode with you, he came back with you every time.
And that he chose to remain on the island. However, Nolan's family said this doesn't make sense, that Nolan wouldn't go out on his own. Even one of Wells' friends, Javon Williams, told CNN, "I've never known Nolan to stay back while his friends leave. He's always been a guy."
Meanwhile, attorneys for the three friends have been forceful in their public statements. In a statement to People, Cox and Pollock called their clients completely innocent young men, describing them as haunted by Nolan's death and accusing what they called opportunists of profiting off the tragedy.
Attorneys Pollock and Cox said in part that their three clients, quote, are completely innocent young men. Each of them love Nolan Wells as a brother, and each are haunted to the cores of their souls by Nolan's tragic death. Magnifying the tragedy, hordes of hustlers, opportunists, and vultures have descended upon the beautiful community of Ocean Springs, Mississippi. Their aim is to divide a town, fuel political agendas, and profit from this tragedy. We, on the other hand, only deal in evidence, facts, and reality. We will never defame, guess, or speculate. And here is the truth. We don't know how Nolan Wells died. But what we do know, beyond any doubt, is this. Warren, Jax, and Morgan had nothing whatsoever to do with Nolan's death. To all those who have defamed these good Ocean Springs people, we recommend in the strongest possible.
They've threatened legal action against anyone spreading what they consider false claims, and according to the Sun-Herald, lawsuits against two specific, currently unnamed individuals are reportedly being drafted.
Interesting. According to the Sun-Herald, Attorney Pollock announced that he and Attorney Cox are planning on filing lawsuits against two currently unidentified individuals, that the suits would be drafted, quote, damn near immediately, adding that they, quote, have been working tirelessly to identify the specific offenders who have, as a matter of law, defamed Warren, Jax, and Morgan.
There's also a financial dimension here. A GoFundMe legal defense fund set up for the three friends has raised more than $166,000.
Oh, and about the friends, I got to mention this. We reported this last week. There is a Give, Send, Go fundraiser that was set up for them, a legal defense fund, currently has raised now over $166,000. And it says in part, quote, since Nolan's death, Warren Hudson, Jax Patalo, Morgan Seymour, and many others have been inundated with death threats, threats of violence, and defamation. They have been falsely and wrongly blamed by individuals online and in the media of either directly or indirectly having a hand in Nolan's death. Most of them could not even attend their own best friend's funeral. Why? Because race baiters sent a deranged army after them online in the name of justice. Since the beginning of the investigation, these young men have cooperated with authorities, turned over all the information they had, and provided an overwhelming number of witnesses accounting for their whereabouts. Some of them even reported to speaking up publicly to defend themselves against baseless allegations. But unfortunately, it has become clear that the truth doesn't matter. Our first goal is to raise money to defend these friends against incoming wrongful death actions filed by attorney Ben Crump and his team. Our second goal is to fund a robust legal team to sue for the litany of slander and libel being spread by not only Crump, but also many social media influencers, news outlets, and local provocateurs who know better. This is not about silencing legitimate discussion or respectful disagreement. People are free to ask questions and express opinions. This is about drawing a line against defamation, targeted harassment, threats of violence, doxing, intimidation, and coordinated campaigns that destroy lives before the facts are known. Your donation says that enough is enough. Your donation says that the time of exploiting a tragedy under the guise of justice and leaving a community in ruins after squeezing as much money out of it as possible.
The fundraiser page describes death threats, harassment, and accusations the friends say are baseless, and states the money will go toward defending against a possible wrongful death lawsuit from Nolan's family, as well as pursuing their own defamation claims. For his part, Ben Crump, representing Nolan's family, has dismissed the idea that the friends' legal maneuvering changes anything. He told TMZ it's a distraction, and that his focus remains solely on determining what actually happened to Nolan.
Out of it as possible is over. Nolan deserved dignity, not this. Oh, and by the way, TMZ caught up with Ben Crump when he was in New York City to get his thoughts of these young men lawyering up. He claimed all of that is a, quote, distraction, and said they are, quote, focused on getting to the truth of what happened to Nolan Wells. That's all that matters to us.
Okay. So what does all of this legal activity actually mean for the underlying investigation? We spoke with former homicide detective and interrogation expert Sergeant John Rapa to break it down.
Of course. Now, before we even get into why they visited the island, what they could be getting from visiting the island, I have to ask you, do you believe, in your professional opinion, that these three young men, these friends of Nolan, have already been interviewed by law enforcement? I feel like they must have already been interviewed if they're, reportedly lawyering up, saying they might take legal action against those they believe are saying false things about them. They wouldn't feel that confident, wouldn't do that unless they have nothing to hide, unless they have already been interviewed and cleared. I mean, you tell me.
Yeah, I would be utterly shocked if law enforcement did not at least attempt to interview them. Now, whether they spoke, whether they cooperated initially, and I imagine at the onset, because from what I understand about the case, they claim to have been concerned for their friend Nolan. And one of the individuals is the one who initially called the Coast Guard, according to some of the reports that I'm getting. So I can imagine initially they were cooperative, and I could not imagine that law enforcement would not interview everybody that was on that boat. If I was to put a paycheck on it, yeah, absolutely. It had to have happened, or at least the attempt.
Because otherwise, despite what is being said about them, they could have just remained silent. But the fact that they're vocal and the fact that, you're even seeing some of the friends, doing interviews with Officer Brandon Tatum, and now
I saw that.
they're lawyering up. To me, from a legal point.
Rapa said it would be surprising if law enforcement hadn't already interviewed the friends, given how openly they and their attorneys are now speaking publicly. Behavior, he says, is more consistent with people who've already cooperated than people trying to avoid scrutiny. But he was careful to note that reasonable people can read the situation differently depending on which side of the online divide they're on. On the question of returning to the island itself, Rapa explained that physically standing in a location can trigger memory recall in ways that simply remembering it can't. Distances, sightlines, even smells and sounds can bring back details a witness didn't consciously register before.
Right now, the family of Nolan's minds, I completely understand why. Whether these kids did anything wrong or not, I certainly understand why they would feel that way.
Why visit the island with their lawyers? What are they hoping to learn by visiting the island?
So I can kind of understand why they'd go back. There's a big difference between remembering a location and then physically standing at that location, right? So distances look different. The sight lines look different. Everything looks different. And so we talk about memory recall. One of the things that I teach is memory recall. And I teach, especially when it comes to victims and witnesses, to concentrate on the five senses. And one of the reasons why I do that is, for example, Jesse, if you heard a song that you haven't heard in like 10, 15, 20 years, that song would bring you back to a time almost instantaneously. And what's remarkable about that is you may start to remember memories that you may have otherwise forgotten about. Everybody does that, whether it comes to a song that you've heard, something you've heard, maybe a smell, touching, feeling, tasting, things of that nature. So we concentrate on the five senses when it comes to witnesses. And so I don't know why these kids went back, why their attorneys wanted them to go back. I have no idea, but I could surmise that everything looks different. It's easier to say one thing, but when you're there and you can feel it and you can smell it and you're around it, you start to remember things that maybe everything looks different. And so
He said it's a technique investigators sometimes use deliberately, and that testing witness statements against the physical environment is standard practice, not a sign of anything nefarious. As for whether the mounting legal activity, a sheriff's investigation, a family commission probe, and now this friend's investigation could complicate things, Rapa said he doesn't expect it to interfere with the official law enforcement investigation itself. Where he does expect an impact is in the court of public opinion, since attorneys on all sides will inevitably frame the evidence that becomes public in ways favorable to their clients.
How does this affect the investigation? And you said investigation. There are now three, right? So there's the official investigation by the sheriff's office. There is the independent investigation being commissioned by the family. And now there's this other investigation that's being commissioned by the friends and their attorneys. And now I'm starting to think, how does one affect the other? And what happens if there's inconsistencies in what is found in each investigation?
So, I don't think, and again, let me preface this by saying the law enforcement's job is to look at it with an unbiased lens. They've got to walk in there and of course they're going to have theories, but they have to test their theories. But law enforcement, if they're doing their job correctly, they're going to look at everything extremely unbiased, right? Walk in there and just say, okay, we've got to be objective when looking at that. Unfortunately, the attorneys for each prospective parties are not going to be as unbiased as law enforcement is supposed to be. They're always going to represent the interest of their clients. And so that's the thing that I think, would it affect the overall investigation? I don't think from the sheriff's department it would. Would it affect the overall court of public opinion? Absolutely. Remember this. Once the defense gets involved, when I say the defense, I'm sorry, once the prospective attorneys get involved and lawsuits are filed, they're going to start subpoenaing each other. They're going to start doing depositions, and these things, some of this stuff is going to become public record, and they're going to start putting that out to the public. So when it comes to the court of public opinion, I truly believe 100% it's
Where things stand right now, the sheriff's office investigation is still active. Under Mississippi law, this case is expected to go before a grand jury before autopsy and toxicology results are formally released. No timeline has been confirmed.